We need to talk about Demi Lovato sitting down with Keke Palmer and opening up about the realities of the entertainment industry. Their conversation covered a lot of ground, from difficult relationships with older exes to the complicated experience of growing up as child stars. And at several moments, they didn't hold back when discussing the current state of the music industry. Today, we're diving into everything that was said this week. When Demi Lovato sat down with Keke Palmer, it quickly became clear that the two had far more in common than most people realize. A lot was revealed during their conversation. Honestly, moments like this constantly remind me that Keke Palmer deserves her own network show. She is genuinely hilarious in interviews. Give her a podcast on Netflix or hand her a daytime talk show slot, she would absolutely thrive. Her energy is effortless. But back to the conversation itself. Back in 2024, I talked about how Demi had already started opening up about the industry in a big way. She explored the darker side of growing up in entertainment through her documentary Child Star, where she sat down with other former child actors and performers to talk about what it was really like working in the spotlight at such a young age. In that documentary, they spoke candidly about the pressures they faced, being pushed to keep working even when they were completely burned out, the expectation to always be easy to work with, and the overwhelming reality that many of them barely remember parts of their own careers because they were under so much pressure at the time. When Demi sat down with Keke Palmer, it became clear that their experiences were incredibly similar. Both of them talked about what it felt like to become the breadwinner for their families at such a young age, carrying responsibilities that most adults struggle to handle, let alone teenagers. That level of pressure, that kind of stress, can shape a person in ways people on the outside rarely understand. And Demi admitted that earning an adult-level income so young came with consequences. According to her, that sudden independence and financial freedom eventually led her into partying, a way of coping with the overwhelming expectations placed on her so early in life.
Party in my own show, I became the breadwinner of my family just by
Me too.
proxy. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's just what happened. They had to help with my career, and we're seeing money that we never had seen.
Oh, absolutely.
And that stress for me, especially not being able to process it, that was like a big triggering point. And then never wanting to be sad or make anybody feel bad about it because I don't want them to be stressed. And then not having a lot of time to have fun and be a kid.
Yeah, for me, I actually was I had this mantra that was if you're gonna work me like an adult, I'm gonna party like an adult.
Oh.
And I got into some bad stuff at a young age, and that's when I started self-medicating. And I wish that, I had stayed more focused. Obviously,
Sure.
I think the course of my life would have gone in a different direction, meaning I wouldn't have maybe struggled as much with substances later down the road.
They also talked about how being so young while working in adult environments shaped the way they saw themselves. Because they were surrounded by older people and carrying adult responsibilities, they were constantly told they were mature for their age. Over time, they began to believe it. That mindset ended up influencing their relationships as well. Both of them reflected on how it led them to date older men at the time, something that was often treated as normal back then. But looking back now, they see it very differently. With the perspective they have today, they question how those situations were ever accepted in the first place. They look back at their younger selves and think, how was I dating someone that age when I was that young? And even more importantly, what was wrong with the adults who thought that was okay? That conversation has also reminded people of other moments in the industry that feel unsettling in hindsight. For example, many viewers have recently revisited old interviews with Justin Bieber from when he was just 15 years old. In one clip, Bieber openly says on camera that he felt uncomfortable with some of the questions adults were asking him. At the time, it was brushed off as awkward celebrity humor, just another strange moment in a press interview. But watching it back today feels very different for a lot of people. With modern awareness and perspective, many viewers now see how inappropriate those interactions were, and recognize that even Justin seemed aware in that moment that the situation crossed a line.
And I'm sitting here in this state of mind today, grateful and for everything that I've been through. But yeah, it was really challenging. There wasn't a lot of time for play, but when I did, I played pretty hard.
I mean, that's very I know we didn't want any of the drama. I know we didn't want any of the drama.
They also talked about how incredibly common these experiences were. According to them, so many young performers in the industry were going through similar situations at the same time. During the conversation, they even mentioned how Hilary Duff recently released a song called Mature, where she reflects on a very similar dynamic from her past. In the song, she sings about being involved with an older man and later recognizing a troubling pattern, that he always seemed to date younger girls. The lyrics paint a clear picture of that realization. She describes another girl who looks just like the others he's dated before, similar to her, but even younger. And the line that stands out most is the one many young women in those situations heard repeatedly. "You're so mature for your age." In the song, Duff reflects on how flattering those words once sounded when she was younger. At the time, it made her feel special, like she was somehow more grown up than everyone else. But with time and perspective, that same phrase takes on a completely different meaning. What once felt like praise now feels like a warning sign, a pattern she didn't fully understand until years later. Listening to that song and reflecting on those experiences, Keke Palmer and Demi Lovato clearly recognized the parallels. They could both relate to that dynamic and to the way young performers were often placed in situations that, looking back now, feel deeply uncomfortable and far from normal.
Wrong with them.
And like that's what we was dealing with.
Yeah.
I found myself dating. I'm 15. Why is my boyfriend 20?
Why was my boyfriend 30?
Girl!
You know what I'm saying? Like,
I'm not smiling at that, but that is real. We was trying to find outlets, though. I don't think,
Outlets, and
it's
also-
just a way to process this, and nobody our age, I mean,
could understand. Nobody our age could understand. But then you look back in hindsight, when I turned 30, I was like, that's not okay.
girl, the moment when you realize and you get the age of a lot of people that were around you and doing stuff, it's almost a mental break that can happen because you realize you were taking advantage of. Oh, I was being exploited. 15, I'm thinking like my boyfriend's older because I'm doing an older job and I'm doing a bunch of things and this is the way that it is, and it seemed normal in my mind. But then
Especially if you're an older soul, too. Especially if you're mature for your age.
Demi had actually spoken about this before. A few years ago, she called out her ex, Wilmer Valderrama, in her song, 29. In the track, she reflects on their relationship and points out that he was 29 years old while she was only 17 when they were together. Looking back, it highlights a reality that many young stars quietly experienced at the time. Situations like that were often normalized in the industry, even though they clearly involved major age gaps and power imbalances. It's honestly heartbreaking when you realize how common those experiences were for young performers. The difference now, though, is that people are starting to call these situations out more openly. Today, there's far more awareness and criticism when relationships involve large age gaps, especially when one person isn't even 18 yet. During the conversation, Keke brought up another interesting point. She said people often ask why child stars didn't talk to each other about what they were going through at the time. If so many of them were experiencing similar pressures and situations, why weren't they having these conversations back then? Why are these realizations happening only now, years later, when they're finally recognizing how much they relate to each other? Keke explained that part of the reason was the way the industry was structured. It often created a sense of competition between young performers, intentionally or not. Instead of building community, it encouraged them to see each other as rivals. Keke even admitted that she often felt like she was on the outside looking in. That sense of isolation made it harder for her to connect with other young stars who might have been going through the same things. And because of that, many of these shared experiences went unspoken for years.
She could relate with.
I might think, well, you're surrounded by other people. There's Miley Cyrus and there's Selena Gomez, but there's a lot of competition that the industry put in those times and space when we were kids. I almost felt like a lot of times, me being black, I was kind of left out of the conversation. Like, people weren't really involving me in it. Which I mean, it kind of was positive. I feel like in a lot of ways because I felt like I would be watching on the outside a lot of those different mechanisms happening, and then always pitting like who's the number one girl. Like that makes it hard to actually become friends with people that might relate to your experience.
Demi also spoke about Selena Gomez, mentioning how the two of them went through their Disney years at the same time. They shared that unique experience of growing up in the spotlight while working within the same system. But even with that shared background, Demi admitted there were challenges, especially when it came to constant comparisons. Being young stars in the same environment meant they were often placed side by side by the media, fans, and even the industry itself. That kind of comparison created pressure and sometimes made things complicated.
Well, what was beautiful
even
is
between
Selena and I
people who
had a
understood
friendship
each
prior
other's
to Disney Channel
experiences
because we
better
actually
than
were
anyone
on Barney
else.
together. And so I felt this safety when I came into the Disney Channel having a built-in friendship there already. And I'm so grateful for that. We'll always be grateful for the friendship that I have and continue to have with her. But it was challenging when people are comparing you to one another and you naturally have insecurities at a young age, so you start comparing yourself to other people.
She explained that during those years, her mom often reminded her that there was room for everyone in the industry. Her mother encouraged her to believe that she had her own voice and her own lane, and that mindset helped Demi push through some of the toughest moments. But Demi also opened up about the personal struggles she was dealing with at the time, especially while filming shows like Sunny with a Chance. Behind the scenes, she was going through far more than most people realized. She said that many of the realizations about her life and her experiences in the industry didn't fully come into focus until later. It was after the Camp Rock 2 tour, when she experienced a major breakdown, that things truly began to shift for her. That moment pushed her to seek help. She began attending AA meetings and started doing the difficult work of reflecting on her past and making amends with people. Looking back now, Demi has been honest about that period of her life. She admitted that during those years, she wasn't always easy to work with and acknowledged that she hadn't always treated people the way she wishes she had.
Going through that and dealing and going through the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, there's a step in there, the 9th step is to make amends. So I had to make amends to a lot of people saying I'm sorry I was so challenging to work with at the time. I was so miserable in my own skin and dealing with what I was going through that I wasn't the nicest person to work with at the time. And I think that chapter of my life where I was being really reflective of everything and I wanted to right my wrongs. And so that was a few years after Disney Channel.
And she explained that during those years, her mom often reminded her that there was room for everyone in the industry. Her mother encouraged her to believe that she had her own voice and her own lane, and that mindset helped Demi push through some of the toughest moments. But Demi also opened up about the personal struggles she was dealing with at the time, especially while filming shows like Sunny with a Chance. Behind the scenes, she was going through far more than most people realized. She said that many of the realizations about her life and her experiences in the industry didn't fully come into focus until later. It was after the Camp Rock 2 tour, when she experienced a major breakdown, that things truly began to shift for her. That moment pushed her to seek help. She began attending AA meetings and started doing the difficult work of reflecting on her past and making amends with people. Looking back now, Demi has been honest about that period of her life. She admitted that during those years, she wasn't always easy to work with and acknowledged that she hadn't always treated people the way she wishes she had.
Because everybody wanted me to be great all the time, and I knew when they would ask that they really didn't think I was fine, I became the satirical character that everybody knows me to be today, which is, I would go overboard because I'd be so mad. I would be inside actually kind of angry. And so instead, I would just be yes. It was my version of trying to fight back against that same feeling that you're talking about, where you know that the adults around you just want you to do the job.
The two of them Demi also shared that while working on her documentary Child Star, she began to develop a deeper sense of compassion for herself. Listening to other former child stars talk about their experiences helped her understand her own behavior during those years. Hearing those stories allowed her to recognize why she sometimes acted the way she did on set, including the times when she wasn't particularly kind to the people around her. At the time, she explained, she was simply trying to survive. She was doing whatever she could to get through each day and fulfill the expectations placed on her. Looking back, she realized that she had been under immense pressure, constantly trying to keep up with the demands of the industry. Through that reflection, she also began to see something more clearly. The system around her wasn't really designed to support her well-being. Instead, it often pushed her closer to her breaking point. The focus was always on producing more work, meeting deadlines, and keeping everything moving forward. She said that once she understood that reality, she stopped blaming herself so harshly for how she coped during that time. Both she and Keke talked about how adults in the industry often appeared to care about them on the surface. But in reality, the priority was usually the work. As long as the job got done, very few people were truly paying attention to how these young performers were actually doing behind the scenes.
Was when people would come on set and they'd say, "Good morning, Demi, how are you?" In my head, I would literally think, you don't care about me. You're just, you don't really care how I'm doing.
But it was true though. You weren't wrong. You know what I mean? Not to say that. I'm not trying to say that, but it's you were dealing with, that's actually valid.
And I just wanted so badly for someone to see that I was struggling. And when I ended up having my breakdown, like everyone did, and I was able to explain to people afterwards, like, it wasn't personal. Like when I showed up and was bratty on set, like that was not my intention. I was just doing like exactly what you said, doing what I had to do to survive.
And Keke said she experienced something very similar. From a young age, she realized that the people around her in the industry seemed to want only one thing from her: constant performance, constant energy, constant results. Because of that pressure, she slowly began to turn herself into a kind of character. Instead of simply being herself, she learned to perform a version of herself that would please everyone around her. It became a way of coping with the expectations placed on her. By leaning into that larger-than-life personality, she could give people what they wanted while still protecting parts of her real self. But like many child stars, that kind of emotional balancing act came with a cost. Over time, constantly playing a version of yourself for the world can make it harder to separate who you truly are from the persona everyone expects to see.
We live in like such a different industry than we did 15 years ago, where you could test things at radio and see what was going to work. Nobody knows what works today, you know?
No, they don't. And what means a radio hit and all that kind of stuff is so technical, and it's so I feel like it's so
and you
involved.
also have to have people that are willing to put things at radio.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's so industry and institutions, you know, so it's kind of like it's very difficult with a lot of that. And I really hope that artists today understand that and don't take it to heart. You know what I'm saying?
So the two of them also touched on the state of the music industry today. It was interesting to hear their perspective on how much things have changed. They talked about how unpredictable the industry has become. These days, no one really knows what will become a hit anymore. Artists can release music they believe in, but getting people to truly pay attention to it, let alone getting consistent radio play, has become increasingly difficult. They also pointed out that even when a song does become popular, the success often doesn't last very long. Hits come and go quickly, and the cycle moves faster than ever. Keke, in particular, seemed concerned about younger artists navigating this environment. She expressed how important it is for them not to take these ups and downs too personally, because the current music landscape can be incredibly unpredictable and sometimes discouraging.
You know what I'm saying?
So it really just feels like the film and TV world has kind of found its like footing to protect artists, but we're seeing the music industry messier than ever right now, and how landing success is harder than ever because it's super competitive and dicey. And if people like Demi have things to say about the music industry right now, like imagine being a new artist. Like that's the biggest warning sign of all. Definitely newer artists need to be protected, because I can't imagine like the mental health state of trying to take off right now or sustain a career in the music industry if those that have had past success are even saying that things are effed up right now. But that is what Keke and Demi had to say when they sat down together talking about the entertainment industry as a whole. I certainly want to know what you guys think about everything. Let me know in the comments. I love you guys so much, and I will talk to you in the next video. Bye, guys.
It really feels like the film and television world has at least started to find some footing when it comes to protecting artists. There seem to be more conversations about boundaries, mental health, and fair treatment. But when you look at the music industry right now, things still seem messier than ever. Success is harder to land, the competition is intense, and the entire landscape feels unpredictable. Breaking through or maintaining momentum can feel like navigating a system that's constantly shifting. And honestly, when artists like Demi, people who have already experienced major success, are openly talking about how difficult and chaotic the music industry feels right now, it really makes you think about what it must be like for brand new artists trying to break in. In many ways, that's the biggest warning sign of all. Newer artists especially need protection and support, because it's hard to imagine the mental strain of trying to launch a career or sustain success in an industry that even established stars are saying feels overwhelming and unstable. But that was the heart of the conversation between Keke Palmer and Demi Lovato as they reflected on the entertainment industry as a whole. Now I want to hear what you think about everything they shared. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, everyone.